So recently Wuthering Waves proved themselves whenever it comes to storytelling and also making a good kind of filler update. Recently I played the second phase of the version 1.3 update and honestly it was absolutely amazing. I played things like the Encore story and also I've been through a couple of the events you've probably seen in my last video. I actually talked about some of the events that are going on and it definitely seems like Kuro Games are trying to make this game as enjoyable as possible even during the times that maybe, might be a little bit quieter. But honestly, whenever I played the Encore story, it definitely changed my opinion a lot about the update because again, I went through a lot of the events that I was talking about early on, tried them out, and thought, okay, this is pretty decent. I mean, there was some really good events in there, but I never thought that it was enough to kind of constitute a kind of phase 2. But after playing the Encore story, it has definitely tied a lot of things up for me, and we're going to be going through all of that. We're going to be talking about how the Encore story was great and how they can actually improve on that in the future, and what the future of Wuthering Waves looks like whenever it comes to storytelling and just what they can add to the story in the future. And we'll also be going over some other creators' opinions about the story as well, and just talking about future kind of filler updates and what they can do with it going forward. But before I get into this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy it, and also go to my Twitch where I'm going to be streaming live. I definitely recommend going down to the pinned comment down below or in the description where there'll be a link to my channel. If you just follow it, then you get notified as soon as I go live, and there I'll be covering a lot of stuff to do with Wuthering Waves news, and just pretty much everything in between, other gacha game news and stuff like that. So you should definitely come check it out, and again, it'll be down in the pinned comment down below. But let's get back into the video. So yeah, yesterday I put out this tweet saying, okay, I just finished the Encore story, and again, it was one of the best stories that I think I've seen in Wuthering Waves. Now, I'm not going to try to spoil too much here, because again, there's a lot of people who still haven't played it. It's only been out for a couple of days, but I definitely think that it hits a lot of different kind of topics which Wuthering Waves hasn't really hit before, and that's where they're really changing up, what they're doing with the story. Because I can understand why a lot of people didn't like the Shorekeeper story or maybe some of the other story, because again, it was kind of romantic based, which a lot of people just don't like. Again, there's people that just don't really go for that kind of story, whereas this story was a completely different kind of love and relationships, and it was more to do with like family, which I think hit much more harder with a lot more people, which has kind of prompted this really positive reception from a lot of fans and also just non-fans of the game. Again, if you literally search Encore story in, the search bar of Twitter, there's a lot of people saying Wuthering Waves is a good game, Encore story was terrible. Again, people saying, hey, you can't be saying that the Encore story is terrible because it was great. Again, people say, love the Encore story quest, held back so many tears during the Encore story quest, dude, I just finished the Encore story quest, and man, the ending still has me crying. So again, there are so many factors to it that people have been really enjoying, and that's just great to see because again, as I've been saying, in 1.3 we've had a really good update with the Black Shores and everything like that, but in phase 2 they were kind of, preparing for other future versions, whether that's 1.4 and also 2.0. So what Gacha Games tend to do is they don't put a lot of kind of content in the game because again, they're too busy working on other stuff. Now that doesn't mean they couldn't just hire more people and just maybe, create something even bigger during this time, and I think that's what Kuro Games is trying to do at the moment, is just trying to create a bigger kind of, plethora of events and kind of really good story for you to play so that you can get through to the next version. And as I said in this, I think the story kind of hits a lot of themes of like family and loss and stuff like that, which is very different to what Wuthering Waves usually cover, and some of the cutscenes obviously look great as always. I think that's one of the strong points that Wuthering Waves has, and with this story it kind of proves that Kuro Games know that they are good at cutscenes and that they are good at kind of establishing these scenes. As you can see here from this picture that I put up, this is a very good still like screenshot thing which they added as one of the cutscenes. And again, the colorization, the amount of saturation in some of this kind of cutscenes and stuff like that really add to the feel of it. And I definitely think that it is much better than a lot of the other cutscenes that I've seen. Now, obviously, you can have some really cool cutscenes with, amazing fight scenes or whatever with a ton of like impact frames, and that's a totally different thing. But I think Encore story, obviously, it's not going to be super jam-packed with action or anything like that. It's much more softer and sadder. So again, I think they've done a really good job at kind of catering to that, and I think that Kuro Games have proved to me and a lot of players that they are capable of creating a really good story. Because again, a lot of people, whenever it came to the Shorekeeper story, were kind of unsure on whether they could actually create a good story or not, because it was very divided on whether people liked the story. I personally liked the story and I liked the themes of the story, but again, there was plenty of people that didn't, and they kind of lost faith in Kuro Games. But one person in particular, and you know, there's many people like this person, and Captain Cabinets, who you know didn't really like the Shorekeeper story for many reasons. Obviously it had a lot of plot holes and stuff like that, and also just didn't really like the relationship aspect of the characters, and a ton more other things. And she went and said, okay, I'll say it, Encore quest made me cry, dude. The best quest they've made so far. The music and visuals were so good. It felt really Christmassy for some reason, giving pure feel good vibes. Protect Encore. My faith in Kuro's storytelling is restored. And this is someone who didn't like the Shorekeeper story, and for as much as I know, didn't like Wuthering Waves as much as maybe, you know, I do, or, you know, some other people do. But it seems like this story has kind of restored her faith in it, and that's the same case for a lot of other people who felt the same way. Because again, they've gone for a completely different story thing, and I think if they tried to go for a similar kind of theme, which again would be really hard with Encore because it'd end up just being really weird, so maybe they'd have to add like a third character in there, it just wouldn't be good. And I think having this whole family thing and explaining, you know, the past of Encore is actually really great. And I think that explaining the past of a lot of these standard characters is really going to help build out the world in the future, and I hope that they do it for some of the other characters, because again, this is one problem that Kuro Games and Wuthering Waves does have, is that we don't know much about the standard characters on the kind of, you know, in the world that we have already, and we're already kind of releasing characters like Jinshi, Changli, and giving them massive stories, whenever we don't even know anything about the current characters in our game. So it's good to go back to some of these characters, and I hope that they do this in pretty much every single kind of filler patch or whatever kind of patch it is whenever it's a little bit slower, because again, it will help us to catch up to some of what these characters are like and what their overall story is. Because now I think a lot more people feel much more enticed to pull for a character like Encore, or wouldn't be mad if they got her, you know, in a 50-50 or, okay, they'll probably still be mad if they got her in 50-50, but on the standard battle or something, they might actually be more excited now because they know her past. You know, they know why she's called Encore now, which was a very, very cool thing. And I think they should do it with some of the other 5-stars that we've had too. Obviously, we've had a lot of different ones. We've got Kuro, who obviously is based in a different kind of world, and we haven't seen any story about him whatsoever. Obviously, we did see a little bit about Encore in the main story, but we didn't really know her kind of backstory and everything like that, but now we do. But yeah, it would be nice to see more about Kuro, about, you know, obviously we got a little bit about Ling Yang as well, which was good. And also characters like Jianjin and a couple of others, which we don't really know that much behind, and we've only talked to very, very briefly. And also the same goes for a lot of the 4-star characters as well. Obviously, we haven't seen characters like Yuan Wu included in the story yet. Now, obviously, I know they are 4-star characters and they're less appealing to people, they're less like fun, but I definitely think that adding a little bit of story in there for them, whether you kind of group up some of the 4-stars and have like a joint story with them all together, I definitely think that'd be good. And I just want them to explain their kind of background, because the only way you can really find out more about them is by going into their character details, which I don't think is very immersive. And I definitely think that adding story like the Encore story to get you emotionally involved with a lot of these characters is going to be great for the future. And also, it does provide that little bit of filler in between patches. Because again, I do think it's a very, very good thing that Kuro Games is actually trying to cook even in the lower patches. I definitely think this is a very underrated update, not the phase 1 bit, because obviously, you know, no one was expecting this story to be so good. Usually whenever a lot of gacha games and a lot of gacha companies release like companion stories, they're like fine, you know. It's sometimes a little bit fun, but again, it's never hitting this hard, where a lot of people are posting about it and saying how good it was. And hopefully Kuro Games can do more of this in the future, as I said, with some of the other characters and just with other stuff in the future, because again, it does kind of fill that gap in between the kind of void, because we're waiting until version 1.4, which again, I'm sure is going to be a great update with Camellya and some other things, and I think we're going to get more information on that very, very soon. So hopefully we do. But while we're waiting for that, sometimes, you know, we do have this big gap where there's nothing going on. But adding this kind of story and these kind of like really fun events at the same time is filling that gap very, very well, and just doesn't make you feel like you're waiting for another version. In fact, this just feels like an entirely new update, which it kind of is. But I definitely think that is something that a lot of gacha games fail to do, and that Kuro Games has done perfectly here. So hopefully they can do this more in the future. And yeah, just let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this. Did you enjoy the Encore story, or did you not really enjoy it? Because again, I can totally see why a lot of people wouldn't really enjoy the story either. Maybe they just don't have that connection with the whole family kind of you know, values and themes that they put in there. But also, I can definitely see why people really enjoyed it. Again, I really enjoyed it. I played it on stream just the other day, and I really wanted to just kind of talk about it a little bit. Obviously, I tried to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, and hopefully I didn't really spoil any of you if you guys are watching this video and haven't played it. But again, really, really good story, and I'm very excited to see what Kuro Games can do in the future. But yeah, that's about all I got for this video. Again, just wanted to talk about this really quickly. If you guys did enjoy it, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and also go to my Twitch where I'm going to be streaming live. Again, we're going to be streaming more stuff like the Encore story like this, and also doing some reaction stuff and just some other kind of Wuthering Waves, Gacha game stuff, which you guys would really enjoy. So yeah, go down to the pinned comment down below, and I'll see you guys on Twitch. But yeah, that's about all I got, and I'll see you guys later. That's all. See ya!